can cloud work for us? Well, cloud potentially not under the current circumstances, but grid as a service potentially. What Excelian have been doing with one of the case studies with one of our biggest customers is a one-stop shop, where we provide the specialist resources, we provide the middleware, we connect it to, in this case, a Murex instance, we provide the hardware, and we support the hardware, and we can provide the hardware. It's a pick list of options, rental or pay-per-use, and our partners in the data center and hardware space are Scottish and Southern Energy. They're a good partner to have from a data center perspective because they're actually a power company. They have unlimited power. They're also a networking company, so they have network capability. They own most of the fiber in London. And they've now bought a data center. So they've the best of all three worlds. And then KDDI, who have global data center presence. They work with us to provide the hardware and provide the data center space and the connectivity. We offer up pay-per-use middleware, in this case from platform computing. There's no reason why we can't use data Synapse or Microsoft HPC server. The licensing models are different. In platform computing, we have a deal where actually they'll happily sell you middleware licenses on a pay-as-you-go basis. We measure how much you use, and they charge you per CPU hour, which is somewhere around 20p down to 8p, depending on the size. And then, of course, we have a 24/7 managed support team sitting in our offices. We've got guys in Australia, and we have guys in Japan, and we manage the grid. This particular grid is over 3 data centers. The infrastructure, so what we're proposing is a shared infrastructure on a timeshare basis. Timeshare works for some people. My mum's had timeshare for 18 years, and she loves it. It's a reserved, allocated, flexible. So we actually will reserve a portion of the available compute hours during the time that you ask for it. So for example, you might say, for my batch, I think I need 2,000 cores between 6 at night and 6 in the morning. I might not use 2,000, but I'll reserve it. I'll pay you for 50% of those, and if I go into the extra 1,000, then there's a pay-per-use price. There's pay-per-use, flexible. We can share. Because we have clients in different regions, we can share the resources. Now, you might think, that's all very well and good. I'm not using it in the middle of the day, so someone in Australia can use it to do their overnight batch. What about security? Well, security is done through a set of sort of virtualization of virtual containers. So the middleware is, at the moment, as I said, platform computing, and it's on a pay-per-use basis. But we can use Microsoft HPC server, and oh look, it looks like Microsoft have started adopting Ubuntu as well. I mean, the licensing for operating systems is also available through us if you wish. Microsoft volume licensing, we can make on a monthly basis HPC server available too. So the whole stack, from our perspective, what became very clear to us is that our customers were saying, there's a lot to work out. I've got to work out the hardware, I've got to work out the operating system, the middleware, I've got to connect it to the grid. It's a lot to do. Let us take that pain away from you. So we've got a fully managed service, 24/7. We will look after the application as well. That's part of one of our service offerings, particularly specialists in Murex, as you know. Why would you do it? Well, it's low startup. You can say, I think I need a grid. I want maybe 50 cores. Well, you can start with 50 cores. In fact, you can start with 25 reserved. We'll make 50 available, and if you use 30, then you pay for it. It's flexible. The good thing is that because of our monitoring capability, we'll look at the usage of grid you have over a period of time. When it gets to a certain level, we'll say, you know what, we think we should add some more cores into here. You need to add to your reservation. So we'll add 50% to your reservation or some more to your reservation fee. We'll rack that up in advance for you so that when you need it, there's no more 6 weeks to get your kit up and running. We've also got a 10% burst capacity always available. And there are options to burst out to the cloud. There's certainly options to move to Amazon or Azure, particularly if you're on Azure, if you're using HPC server. As a case study, as a scenario, what we recommend is an internal grid. There's a good reason for that, even if it's small. having some piece of your grid internally so that you can do low latency calculations, you can do intraday ones, but also so that you can build your image of what you want to deploy onto the public or onto the shared grid infrastructure, onto the grid as a service infrastructure. We will work with you to make sure that that is a safe and secure image. We'll make sure we don't recommend you deploy into existing images on the shared infrastructure. We recommend you build a new virtual machine and then you deploy. We copy that over and install that. So the internal grid and the external grid are connected, and you can have Murex internally in your existing data center and just fire out jobs to the external grid. It's also a possibility for disaster recovery. It's a kind of insurance policy, I suppose. We'll manage both the internal and external. We put a guy in your offices, and we have a team, all of whom understand your particular requirements. And we can work with you to provide different levels of security. It's a compromise. We can we will secure and encrypt the virtual machine. We can secure and encrypt the virtual machine's hard drive. We can secure and encrypt any kind of transfer going backwards. But of course, the more you do that, the more performance hit you have. And it's a compromise, and we'll work with you to ensure the appropriate levels of security. Everything runs in virtual containers. You build your image, you give us your image. We don't even have to look in it. We don't have to have any. We've got all the monitoring tools to be able to manage it remotely without actually looking in it, although it's easier for us if we can. And we use the virtual container capability to deploy and undeploy and to quiesce different virtual machines. We'll move your machines completely off of the hardware while we put somebody else's on in the gap in the middle. We're a single point of contact. We'll manage the hardware, the middleware, operating systems, all the vendor relationships, except for obviously the Murex relationship, because you obviously have very good ways of managing that yourselves. Now the thing about this is, people have been asking. I recently did a presentation at the Cloud Camp on why investment banks won't use cloud technologies yet. Actually, they do use them, and they use them for non-critical applications at the moment, like print servers, fax servers. But HPC and the cloud don't necessarily seem to work, or at least we don't think of them as working. But what we can do is we can exploit all the technologies that have been put in place for cloud. And cloud is very secure. I mean, I'd be quite comfortable putting my documents on Google Docs, and I'm sure some of you do, and not expecting anybody else to be able to see them. The people in the cloud community have put a lot of effort into security. And there's no reason why we can't multi-tenant, and there's no reason why we can't outsource. When I've spoken to lawyers in investment banks, and they've said, no, there is no reason why we can't do it, but there are particularly important quant code, for example, deploying that out to an outsourced grid, there's a lot of nervousness around it. Legally, it's absolutely fine. We can manage the security levels and we can validate the security, but it's still a hearts and minds question, getting over the politics of doing that. So we provide flexible, scalable, managed service for grid, a low start option, and we're able to do that because of the maturity of the software and of the industry and of the market, and of the fact that, for example, in the Murex space, we've been putting grid and Murex together for the last 5 years. That's almost the end. Because what I wanted to say about the space pen was that the Americans spent, I think, £1 million or so putting together this space pen. But many of you know, I'm sure, that the Russians, when they got there, they just used pencils. Isn't it funny how technology goes?